coming up next. Stay tuned to learn more about the state of the art in blockchain and cryptocurrency technology. Reimagine 2020.
All right, welcome everyone to our power panel. We're going to get started right away. I want to introduce, you should be hopefully seeing four squares. So the top with the Satoshi shirt, because two people wearing black, is John Karanja of both BitHub Africa as well as Y Protocol. And also wearing in black is Ryan Robinson of Conduit. And wearing North Carolina blue is Girard Newkirk of KWH Energy, and sometimes known as KWHCoin, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So without further ado, we'll start with North Carolina blue. And I have the same question for all three of you. So we'll go Girard, John, and Ryan. But give us a little snapshot about your startup and how you entered the blockchain sector.
Yes, well, thank you for having me on, Deidra. I'm CEO of KWHCoin. We are a renewable energy asset management company. Essentially what we do is we support municipalities, local companies with transitioning to clean energy. So we started out really as an energy verification platform. We started back in 2016, actually 2017. What brought me to blockchain was renewable energy. Just to kind of give a little bit of background, was renewable energy, and I saw blockchain as a type of technology that could decentralize smaller, more distributed resources. So I was actually vice president of Macy's out in San Jose. So my background was in retail as a retail executive and as a freelance writer. So I've written a lot about, energy for Africa, especially in the Caribbean, and that being the key step toward, we talk about the African diaspora and things like this. High energy costs have the most burden on the Black economy developing. So that was kind of like the baseline, was how can we use technology to lower those energy costs, and how can we have a more robust renewable energy future? So KWHCoin was kind of founded on those principles, essentially. And now we have expanded to use the technology again to help communities locally, especially, transition to a more sustainable renewable energy future. And we're doing a lot with helping. I live here in Wilmington, North Carolina, which is right in Hurricane Alley. So we're working on building more resilient grids. And part of the focus now, and me working with the city of Wilmington now, is how to develop that. And they're going to use our technology, of course, to help track and to use as a software management system. And then we then want to scale what we learn from this project to the Caribbean and to other places.
Fantastic. John Karanja?
Thank you for having me. My name is John Karanja. I'm the co-founder at BitHub Africa. And BitHub Africa is a blockchain accelerator, also focused on driving energy access across Africa. And we've been around since 2016, mainly developing a community across the continent. We've been to 7 countries and training them around blockchain technology. So one of the things we've done since being founded is we've launched a blockchain protocol called the Y protocol that seeks to drive adoption of sustainable solar energy in particular, using something we call trustless rewards. So in the past few years, we've seen one of the big challenges we have is there are not enough skilled engineers in general, but also blockchain engineers in particular, So we've developed a program where we're training them on how to run nodes, run mining nodes, develop applications on top of blockchain. In particular, we're using the Bitcoin Lightning protocol and as well as our Wave protocol. And the idea is to enhance capacity for solving this main challenge we have of energy access. Yeah, so I also happen to be the co-host of the Black Blockchain Summit, which we've held in 2018 and 2019. And it's a shout out of Eric, Satoshi's Black. And I'm happy to be Girard and Deidra, who have been our past speakers as well.
That's right, Black Blockchain Summit at Howard University, no less. So he flies in a contingency with lovely gifts for the panelists.
Yes, you guys is welcome.
All right,
okay, yeah.
Ryan Robinson.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for having me, first of all. This is Mike. And so my name is Ryan Robinson. I'm an MIT alum, Miami native. And so my story is I was introduced to blockchain actually at MIT. We had the MIT Bitcoin project. They gave every student $100 of Bitcoin to see what we do with it. This was in 2014. And so really, really nascent at the time. And so I would hear about it to my other friends, kind of, cashing it out, buying pizza with it, stuff like that. So I think MIT had one of the first ATMs where you could withdraw money from the Bitcoin that you had. And so that just exposed me to it. And then the fast forward inspired me to make my own, basically blockchain inspired company called Conduit, Conduit, where we basically make models and simulations of things using that kind of mining mindset, where it's, you're distributing, you're donating computing power to one common network. And so right now we're actually working on COVID-19 work, whether it be with NGOs, with government, in terms of, first of all, making new treatments, but also predicting future outbreaks. So we worked on that for the past 3-4 months.
Great segue, because now I'm going to reverse the order. We're going to go Ryan, John, and Girard. But you talked about using kind of a blockchain mindset. How do you explain to someone who doesn't understand the difference between general technology and blockchain technology why there's a benefit to have a company that operates in that fashion? And that's going to be the same question for everyone. So, because I think a lot of times people are at a I don't know what the psychological phrase is, but when you think life is as good as it gets, what is this new bell and whistle? Do I really need it? Or is there any value to it? So can you give an idea with respect to your own individual companies why it is an asset to kind of set the stage in that blockchain fashion?
Absolutely. So for me, the way I see it was the same way when you look at the Einstein at the time.
Hey, Ryan, I'm going to stop you for a minute because I can't hear you that well. Did something unplug or? Okay, Blender. Gotcha. Go ahead. Go start again.
So for me, I see it as the same thing as the turn of the 20th century with Einstein, Planck, Heisenberg, where at the time, right around when Einstein's at the patent office, they've said that all of physics has been figured out. There's nothing else you can really do. And obviously he blew that out the water, and so did the rest of people that came after him. And so with the context of blockchain, I think it's a similar thing where I think the sort of future, right, whether you're seeing it from movies to even the articles, has been a lot of focus on AI, even some focus on quantum computing, which I'm in as well. But there hasn't been so much about blockchain. I think blockchain is very new, and it's something that is important. And really assessing, I think really understanding what your organization needs and what value add is provided. I think that's where a lot of times people will get confused, especially people outside of the space. Because you have to understand, okay, what is technology's goal? What is AI's goal? How are these things different, right? And then how does blockchain fit into that? So in terms of us, when I try to explain to someone, like whether it be my grandma to, another tech person, the benefit of blockchain is really, it comes down to, the first thing I mentioned is your security. That's usually the biggest thing. There's a huge security add to it. And two is also a trust aspect to it too. I always remind people that, blockchain, the original paper was written in 2008, 2009. And if you look at the sociological context, the economic, political economic context. Right, you have the Great Recession, you have, you know, moral hazard of banks, what have you. So there's this sense of a lack of trust, and you're seeing that now too, a lack of trust in our institutions, both financial and political. And so I think blockchain is very much so a response to that, and I think that's why blockchain has drawn a lot of people who are very interested in the politics of blockchain, whether it be in, you know, through voting, what have you. And I think that's why it's drawn so many crowds, is that there's a unique value in terms of not just the security aspect, but again, in terms of the public trust, the saying, I don't need to necessarily know who's on the other end of this because I know that the network itself is secure and it's not dependent on the morality or the ethics of the people in between.
Okay, John?
Yes, from my perspective, there is certainly a very huge need for blockchain solutions here on the continent in Africa. And this is mainly driven by the censorship resistant aspect of blockchain technology. Some numbers came out, I think, about 2 days ago on the trading of Bitcoin on peer-to-peer networks across Africa. And this is on localbitcoins.com and paxful.com. And the numbers or the growth of trading over the past 5 years has been quite huge, showing that there's a need for people to transact across borders. And it's very difficult to do this with the traditional banking system or with other platforms such as Western Union that offer these services, but at a very high cost to the person in Africa. So, for example, if I was working in the States and I wanted to send $100 to my cousin or my grandmother in Kenya, it would cost about $20 to send that $100, which is about 20% markup. So you've seen Bitcoin in particular has come and met that need. I think on the continent, we're transacting about $500 million peer-to-peer every year in sub-Saharan Africa. And this has just opened up a lot of opportunities for young people in particular, because these are the traders, these are the brokers who are leveraging this technology. So I see the censorship-resistant aspect of this technology powering markets. And the first markets are the financial markets, whether it's remittances or just cross-border transactions or trade finance. And then other markets include energy markets, which is what Girard and myself are working on. So these markets are huge. They're worth trillions of dollars in Africa and the rest of the world, but they've not been exploited or developed because there was no technology that really allowed us to do so until blockchain technology. So this is why we've been focused on really advocating for people to understand the technology and even adopt it and build companies on top of this technology.
Okay, Girard. Nope, you froze up a bit. And I think you're on mute.
Yeah, let me unmute. All right, I think I'm unmuted now. Sorry about that. For us, the focus is decentralization, is obviously security, which I think ranks as the priority. But the focus on decentralization and peer-to-peer systems, because ultimately, one of our mottos at Genesis Block, which is a community collaborative that we started, is from local to global. And so we really try to focus on using the technology to, first of all, take all of your assets and take local management and ownership of them, almost to the point of, some of the things that you've seen with energy. You can trade energy peer-to-peer with your neighbor. So that dramatically increases your power and it dramatically increases your empowerment. The next component of that is decentralization. Part of what I speak a lot about is that the centralized systems, I think as he was speaking to earlier, are where there's distrust. And how can I get the things that matter to me most, the things that I need to control my existence, as close to me as possible, and with people that, or with a protocol or with a platform that I can trust, versus intermediaries and institutions or other type of hierarchical structures. So I try to explain it along the lines of decentralization, being there, because we work a lot with trying to build a local economy. That's part of our work with Black Wall Street, and Satoshi is Black. I also spoke at a Black Wall Street conference when I was there in DC. And blockchain technology can be a conduit or the infrastructure to build that from. So decentralization, peer-to-peer are the two components that I speak on the most, and that I guess intellectually where there's the most focus in trying to drive that message. But we want to market as a foundation for a local economy.
Okay, I only have about two more questions. This time we're going to go John, Girard, and Ryan. I like to mix it up. Specifically to your startup, who is your customer? Who's your target customer? And how do they are you at the point now that you're still developing, or you're at the point of servicing that ideal customer as it relates to your startup? John?
Yeah, so with what we're doing with the WIFE protocol, we are sort of really defining what you call the ground layer of this blockchain technology, which is a source tool or platform, if you like, that anyone in the world can adopt. So the protocol is about 3 months old, and we have miners in about 10 countries. Of course, at the moment, China is leading the pack in terms of how many rewards have been mined. We have countries like Bulgaria, Romania, the US, of course, the UK, Kenya, of course, where most of the developers come from. So the protocol is designed to incentivize people to plug in the nodes, what we call the blockchain nodes, into solar power resources, which in turn drives the adoption of solar resources across the markets. And of course, we're focusing on the African and Asian markets initially. So on top of the protocol, according to our roadmap, we have about 9 more months left for the protocol's roadmap to be more or less complete. We're building a company called Melanin Ventures or Melanin Solar that will work with existing vendors because on the continent who are already deploying solar systems, and they will be able to plug into our protocol and earn these rewards and sort of increase their own liquidity and enable the peer-to-peer markets that is the ultimate goal. So we are still in the sort of initial stages of that. We're looking to do pilots here in Kenya amongst the famous Maasai community, because they believe they live a life of decentralization, small communities distributed across the country. So they'll be the perfect test case for the Melanin solar solution. So we're quite happy with the protocol. It's only 3 months, and we are sort of getting there. And part of the things we want to do is all the people who've been in our community for the past few years are welcome to come and install nodes. And I know, Deidra, you've been really advocating for this amongst your friends in the US, and participate and also get the gains and benefits of running these protocols. And that's one thing I feel that's missing within the Black community in general is we don't participate at the production side of these, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Ethereum. We're almost always waiting for the solution. But this is a case where we are the ones driving the agenda and we're driving the solution, and we are having an impact on it.
So for clarity's sake, the goal is for, if you use the Maasai, for example, the goal is for them to be able to profit from the resale of solar energy, or to be consumers of the solar energy. What's the ultimate goal?
That's a good question, because our target user, we call him a prosumer, which is combining producer and consumer. So they can produce their own energy at home and sell it to their neighbors, and they can also buy excess energy if they need that excess energy from the neighbors, and also become consumers. Okay. So this is a sustainable way to develop this particular industry where People are transacting peer-to-peer, and if they're able to produce, they produce. If they're able to only consume, they consume. If they're able to do both, they do both. So it's really about freedom and decentralization, as well as sustainability.
Okay, Girard, your customer?
Yes. Yeah, I think that for us, our target customer now are communities with a population less than about 200,000. We want to focus on areas that have vulnerable populations as it relates to price fluctuations, also as it relates to having access to energy because of things like storms, whether it be climate change related if you're in the islands or the Caribbean, or whether it just be that you're an off-grid location in a mountainous area and you can't get a resilient, affordable flow of energy. So we have hardware partners that support us with the installation of solar, wind, water, and we also have a team of consultants to help us come up with a comprehensive solution that's curated. And then our software tools are what manage and expedite the process. So for us now, this is why we're so excited about working with the city of Wilmington. It fits right into that. It's right on the coast, population of about 125,000. It'll give us a very clear platform in order to build out curated solutions for, because that's ultimately what we want to build is curated renewable energy solutions for these communities. And then with the things that we learn from Wilmington, this is where we're looking to scale out into the Caribbean, into the islands, and also into off-grid population. We're doing some work in Kenya. So this is like COVID-19. We're meeting now via Zoom, so we have an ability to kind of get into it.
Okay, well, a little at the end, I lost it a little bit about who were you meeting? Zoom or something like that? You said something about Kenya or something. Lost the connection a little bit. I think you're muted.
Yeah. Yes, I was saying that our meetings now with Wilmington and the Clean Energy Task Force, they're going to be via Zoom. So we're excited about when there's some level of normalcy so we can get back into the trenches and really dig out what building a comprehensive renewable energy solution is for a community that lacks resiliency when it comes to storms, when it comes to acts of God, when it comes just to the overall fluctuation in energy prices. So we're excited about the learnings that are going to be coming up to build out more products and solutions.
Great. And Ryan, you're a customer?
There we go. Actually, really quick, I wanted to add to John. Is your name John? Did I get it correct?
Well, John with Satoshi is black shirt, and Girard is North Carolina blues.
So to John's point, you were talking about sustainability and decentralization. Which, I mean, obviously we're talking about those points in general, but it just reminds me of when you're reading about you're studying economics, right? It's all about making the markets more efficient. But from an information standpoint, from a research standpoint, and so I think it's going back to the last question is that I think that's one thing that blockchain does add is that mentality. Right, the mentality of efficiency, of decentralization in general, that makes the markets overall just more productive. For us, we do it in the context of compute. I know you guys are a little bit more towards the energy, if I understood you correctly. And so overall, we're all doing really cool stuff. So I just want to add that. For us, is it's been an interesting journey for us because we. Our idea is a little bit not strictly married to blockchain, so it's more just in the networking space in general. So for us, it's been three major points really. How do you build it? Then how do you get the compute, right? And then what do you apply the compute to? And so for me, I've been spending most of the journey on building the foundation of it. So how do we build a network? Where does the compute come from? So we have what I call a double-sided marketplace. Something like an Uber, Airbnb type model, which you guys are definitely familiar with. And so for us, we looked at where were the sources of compute first, because that's kind of our supply. And so for us, in terms of talking about ideal customer, we really have two answers to that, right? So one on the supply side, one on the demand side. So on the supply side, for us, we found that it's someone that obviously has a lot of compute, but particularly is someone that has an idle amount of compute. An idle amount of compute, that's a big part. And then 3 is someone that has a tech mindset, early adapter mindset is more specific. So for instance, for us, we worked with call centers, and they got a lot of compute. They're not using all the capacity. And we found that that the mindset wasn't there, because the distinction I learned was that you can use technology very heavily but not be a tech company. There's a different kind of spirit there, different type of mentality, adoption curve, what have you. And so for us, we found that targeting crypto miners, stuff like that, has really been, or people with universities, because that's more closer to my background. Well, as crypto space, as we all know, is like constantly growing, expanding, contracting, everything. So the university, we found a space is a bit more stable, but also smaller in terms of people, but bigger in terms of compute. So the compute to person ratio is dramatically bigger, and again, more consistent. And so that's on one side. And then 2, it actually works out, when we go back to that really quick, is 2 works out because universities are so aware of security. Because one of the questions we always get, I imagine you guys get this question all the time, is my stuff going to be safe? Is my data, my information? So for us, when we say, we're working with MIT, we're working with University of Nevada, Las Vegas, we're saying, well, listen, these guys, they sometimes work with the government, so they have to be top-notch security. It gives an added trust to our brand and to our product and our service, servicing customers on the demand side. And so on the demand side for us is, we looked at first cloud computing, and we really narrowed it down for the last year and a half. And so I mentioned the COVID-19 stuff, and right now we're working with actually the HPC consortium. It's basically the Super Justice League group of supercomputers across America. And so they're helping us out a lot. And then we're using that, like I said, to design the drugs. So it's a lot of modeling the physics, geometry, and the chemistry. So it's really, really intense and fun stuff. So our customer, ironically, is actually everybody, in that sense of the COVID-19 stuff. But outside of that, before that, we were actually targeting the financial space, specifically the quantitative finance space, where that's where we really started to prove the merits of our foundation, the merits of our service. So that's where we showed we can accomplish a 100-time speed up. So something that takes 2 weeks we can do in about an hour. So we were really happy about that. And we were actually right about to start really marketing our solution, and then bam, the pandemic hit.
That's supposed to be a
windfall.
That's supposed to be a windfall. So essentially what you're saying is you aggregate idle computing power from groups, and then you supply that wherever it's needed. So that could be a university like Rutgers University, who developed the spit test for COVID. You're welcome, New Jersey. Or it could be for anything in finance or whatever, because there's a deficit of computing power. It's just wherever it's your customers, wherever is needed, that they need this deficit of power, and you're kind of in the middle of
Right.
that system. Final question, and we'll go. I forgot who didn't start now, because Ryan was talking so loud. I was like, I'm going to start first. So we'll go. Girard, we'll go the original way. Girard, John, and Ryan. Tell me, how can people find you online? How can they support you? Whatever it is that you want to. And remember, a lot of the audience is also university students, not just at HBCUs, but from around the world. What are some ways that they can help support, and then in just people in general? Gerard.
Yes, thanks. Yes, you go to our
And how
website,
they can, how they
KWHCoin.
can contact you too. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, KWHCoin.com. My email is gnewkirk, GNEWKIRK at KWHCoin.com. Most of and we're follow that same handle on Twitter and all social media platforms as well. But what we're looking at now is just because we are doing some things now that are uncharted territory as far as building kind of like this smart grid. So we're working here with UNCW and their data science. Their data science is, I think they already have their masters, but they're adding a lot of value to us because we've learned so many things as far as scrubbing the data to make it make sense in order to aggregate for grid resiliency. but also in order to form a foundation for there to be people to get value for that data, because we track energy in real time. So there is a data point that can be attached to that based on the markets. So we're looking for innovators too, just people to help us to kind of build out. We're going to have access to all this information, all of these insights. How do we build out products that make sense for the energy market? So a lot of what we've been doing lately is trying to get with people that are in the energy fields and actually service utilities, service the grid, to see how we can add value based on the pieces of technology and our service model and our platform and what it can provide.
Thank you. John?
Thank you. Yeah, so where we need the help the most is on the protocol. So the website is www.wive.io, and Wive is spelled WHIVE.io. The Telegram group is Wive.io, WHIVE.io. And we need a lot of people to run nodes, help us run unit tests on the system as we release the versions that are coming up. And if you want to contact me via email, our email is jambo, JAMBO, at bithub, BITHUB.Africa. So Africa with a C. So you guys can reach out to me there. And I'll also want to announce we have a Black Blockchain Summit coming up this year. It will be the social distancing edition in September.
I was about to say, look, it's DC.
Yeah, so the best place to go for now is the website, blackblockchainsummit.com, and the Telegram group, Black Blockchain Summit. And we'll keep you updated on the event date and how to sign up and all of that.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Thanks for that. Ryan?
So for us, I'd say we're always looking for interns. And so you can email me at, this is my name, ryan.robinson@conduitcomputing.com, CONDUIT. We're also always looking for investors. So that's why the biggest thing, startups is manpower and money and capital. So outside that, we're doing great. And if anyone has any, questions or just general interest, again, email me at ryan.robinson@conduitcomputing.com.
And thanks. I'm glad you guys were available, and thanks for sharing your time. We had a good conversation for about at least 40 minutes. And again, I'm Deidra McIntyre, founder of Black People in Cryptocurrency, and one of our missions is to support Black-led startup founders globally, and to encourage people to fund them and fund us, and also spread the education of Bitcoin, which is why we are an ambassador of Mousebelt, which is the first US-based blockchain accelerator, but GitHub Africa, it was earlier than Mousebelt. And we're ambassador for them, and they are the ones that helped to produce the Reimagine 2020 conference. So thank you again for your time, and I look forward for learning more developments about your startups in the future. And power to the people. Take
Thank
care.
you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stay tuned to learn more about the state of blockchain education at major universities all around the world. Reimagine 2020.